I think it's just really important to think about well-being and mental health as a team effort. The basic idea that I think is so clearly captured in the film is that our well-being is socially created, that we learn about ourselves, we learn about other people through our experiences with the people around us. So, you know, in effect, how we are thought about, how we are felt about, how others behave towards us, in some way shapes how we then go on to think about, feel about other people. And so just as our sense of ourselves can be socially created, one of the vulnerabilities is that it can also be socially destroyed, or at least damaged. Not just, I think, in the early years of development, but throughout our development. The idea of social thinning that was introduced, I think, is important, where opportunities for new learning through other relationships diminish as life goes on, as some of these more maladaptive patterns have that kind of insidious effect in the network of people around us. So the crucial thing, I think, is that while we might see the problem arising in a social context, I really believe that the solution can be found in that social context as well. So that the damage that may be socially created can also be socially repaired. So films like this, I think, are incredibly helpful because they make things that are often invisible or confusing visible and much more understandable. Because the latent vulnerability that it describes has its potential to be disruptive because it lies below the surface, it's out of sight. And being aware of the possibility can significantly reduce its disruptive potential. I talk about how our brains develop a lot with the young people, with the families that I work with. And I can really see the positive impact of having new ways of thinking about difficulties and relationship problems that previously have just seemed like a complete mystery. It's almost like, I imagine it being like the ideas create a foothold that just lift you above a really tall wall that has been obscuring what's been going on. You can see over to what's going on the other side and seeing into another person's mind. And that mutual recognition is often, in my experience, enough to carry relationships through problems that have seemed incredibly stuck and just very difficult to understand. So I think the film contributes in that way, being part of that, lifting us over to see the other side. Having someone who can hold you in mind when you can't do it for yourself, I think, is one of the most important assets that any of us can have. We all wobble at times, we make mistakes, we misunderstand things. I certainly do it all of the time. It's entirely human, and in fact, I believe it's essential that we get a chance to learn from the mistakes that we make. Learn that our relationships can survive those mistakes. Sometimes they're even made stronger because we find a way back from them together. So what's important is that we feel safe to try and find a way back when things go wrong, and that the people around us can help create an environment in which mistakes are okay, that we can rely on having support to turn it around again. The idea of social thinning that was described in the film is, I think, really very important because it highlights that the problem doesn't exist exclusively in a damaged child. The breakdown and the give and take of relationships, mutual understanding that might exist, can begin on either side of that relationship. And crucially then, the solution can also be discovered and found on either side of that relationship. So it gives us a part to play for those children who are experiencing the effects of these early interruptions to their development. I'm a great fan of the importance of pausing, taking a moment when we try and work out what's going on. And it can make all the difference in transforming reactions which are often quite impulsive, maybe quite poorly thought out, and transforming and changing them into responses that have an idea of our own, of other people's intentions behind them. So the swimming coach demonstrated that just so well. Taking a moment to try and make sense of something that didn't quite add up opened up the possibility of a whole new sequence that affected at least 3 different relationships. And crucially, someone else pausing helped the boy in the film to make his way back. He didn't have to do it all on his own. And having a team around us who will help to create those kinds of opportunities and map the way back from near misses can, I think, be just quite transformational in reshaping a child's opportunities in life. I work mainly with children and young people who are on the brink or in the middle of their adolescence. Developmentally, this is a period of just huge opportunity and challenge as well. Social relationships, especially with peers, become much more significant, much more prominent in young people's minds. It's a hardwired shift, actually, to move from that perspective that prioritises family and turns attention to peers. In a more nuanced way than perhaps for infants, young people are discovering themselves in others and finding their tribe, the people that they will move into life with. The implications of early experience are put more robustly to the test during this period, when the social scripts are being played out and the stakes seem and are experienced as much higher. But it's important to remember that the really rapid brain development that happens over this decade of adolescence, especially in the social brain, the network of brain regions that help us to make sense of others and of ourselves, that also means that the potential for learning is just huge. So we see a sharp upturn in the rate of mental health problems during adolescence. And some of this can be understood in terms of those latent vulnerabilities coming to the surface. When young people navigating their way through more complex relationships is one of the most important things they have to do. And if young people and the people around them have a map that highlights some of the bumps in the road and signposts the whole team to the alternative routes that are now available, it can have a significant positive impact in limiting the impact of the latent vulnerabilities that we all carry within us and promoting good mental health and resilience.